Hello, my name is Kurt, or Kurtoisby. Um, I play mainly on the PMW server, but the information I'm going to go over can relate to basically any server, so long as the mods that we use are compatible with said versions. Now, the version for this server specifically is 1.21.8, and regardless of any mods you have, the version must be this to join this specific server. Um, there's the address mc.wubby.tv, and the player base averages around 20 a day, though at launch it was around 300. So we're waning, but we've done a lot in our time, and I just kind of want to make the process of anyone new joining that wants to learn about all this easier. And like I said, this can relate to any server. You don't have to play on our server, but I'm going to try and make it as cohesive as possible. I don't make videos as my career, so bear with me. But as long as you're on this version, you can join this server. And I use CurseForge. It doesn't matter what you use. You can use Prism, Modrinth, CurseForge, or even just the vanilla Minecraft launcher. All that matters is the version and that your mods are client side only. Now, what that means is they're mods that only affect you and have nothing to do with the server, such as a map mod. This renders only for me, and it renders any area that I personally have rendered, like my radius, chunk distance, or whatever. Um, Mods like that will work, so just kind of try and search for client side only mods. There's a ton, trust me. But it doesn't really matter how you load the game. People prefer Prism because there's no ads, which I understand. But I run a few modded servers, as you can see all these mod packs. And in getting my friends to join, when they use Prism and they import my mod pack, there's usually issues versus CurseForge users who import my mod pack. It's flawless because it's coming from CurseForge and going to CurseForge. Now, at the end of the day, that's preference. And if you run into issues on Prism importing mod packs, it's usually just Prism didn't download one or X amount of mods. So you might have to manually do stuff. I've had to help people do that in the past. So I would advise CurseForge, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Now, the mods I'm going to go over are specifically for map art. I'm not going to go into depth about the map mods or anything like that. Just know that they exist. Now, the map art mods are all of these here specifically. I'm going to leave the list in the description as well as links, hopefully, to each. Now, I say hopefully because one of our players on the server, who is actually on right now, his name is LEINGEN, Leingen, and he's done phenomenal work. He has rewritten, or maybe just updated mods to work on our version, because the original mod creators aren't up to 1.21.8 yet. So in order to use them on this server, he had to update them. So we are forever grateful to him. And the mods include Lightmatica, just base Litematica. There's a downloader, which allows you to browse website schematics within game. So you don't have to go to any website to find schematics. The generator is a command in game where I actually forgot the command. But basically you can generate, oh, right there, generate circle, parabola, sphere, or to text, sorry. And what it is it's going to create a schematic to use with Litematica in the shape that you desire. So if I was to generate a sphere with a radius of 10, it would generate a sphere with a block radius of 10 that I could then build in world with Litematica. The Malilib is just a library that's required for Litematica, so it's just a dependency. Map and slot is really just a quality of life where if I was to find a map art, let's just take one off the wall. I can see what the image is in my inventory. So I can see that it's there, here, and on the wall. Now, schematic preview is when you have schematics. This is what your schematic folder looks like. You can see what they look like. And sometimes they do bork out if they're really big. Like you can see there's some holes in the render. There's actually blocks there, so don't worry about that. It's more so just a quick little view. Shulker tooltips is another quality of life where if I just take this shulker, I can see in my inventory just what's inside without having to place it. And that's basically it. Now, like I said, you can use other client-side mods. I have about 70. Even down to stuff like shaders. I use complementary unbound. Now, the world is chunks, and the chunks are this big. As you can see, the yellow and blue and red lines. And to see chunks, you need to press F3 and G. As you can see, chunk borders hidden, shown again. Now, map arts need to align with specific chunks on a grid. And what that means is, let me try to find a map so I can show you. So I have this empty map, and I'm going to right-click to render the map of where I'm currently at in the world. And the map shows this little white icon moving up towards the north. Now, the chunk borders are the corners of the map. As you can see, I approach closer, and eventually I become a circle. That means I'm no longer within the chunk that is rendered on the map. And once I enter it again, the dot becomes like flexible instead of a dot. Now, that means that this line right here on the chunk borders is the corner of the map. And same for the opposite end. If I just move to the other end, this entire area is the map. And anything placed in this area will be displayed as the image on the map. So you'll come down here and hold this. Oh wait, no, I didn't make this one, so I need to hold this one. And as you can see, there's a circle dot there that moves because this art was made on this chunk area. And obviously you can see the image there and me standing on top of it, but there's nothing actually here. And that's because the map is locked and named. The naming isn't entirely necessary, but we'll get into that later. So you need to align empty maps to the chunk border and then create your canvas or your image within that area. If it's even 1 pixel off, say 1 block this way or 2 blocks this way, it will reflect in the image and it will look broken. Now, there's this weird science to Minecraft map art that, to be honest, I don't fully understand, but I know the facts and what we've gone through and what we've learned. Excuse me. Now, if you see this image, it has very distinct lines going here and here. We call these, and the majority of map art community on Minecraft calls these noob lines, scan lines, you know, misshading. Because what's happening here is this green and this green are in world the same carpet. They're the same green color carpet. But because of the way the canvas was built and the way the image was oriented, it created misshading. Now, again, I don't know why this happens, but it does happen. And in this case specifically for the glorp, this canvas was directed, instead of east to west, so those down there are facing west and the top up there is facing east. Instead of doing this, this canvas was faced north to south. And everything else was the same, down to the mechanics of how it works, the spacing of the lines. Everything is the same. It's just facing a different direction. And for some reason, when that happens, it creates these lines. Now, there's also different ways to achieve this borked outcome, but this one specifically is a misdirection canvas. Now, for the other example, we have these here. As you can tell, 99% of the image is intact. It's just this line here and this line here that are misshaded. And you can clearly tell, even from a distance, that there's lines going through that image. Now, what happened in this case is the canvas was built correctly, facing the right direction. It's just the top of the canvas, which I'll show you is this area here. I'm actually missing some blocks. This is considered the top of the canvas. And I know that sounds weird because the top physically is up there, but the top is where the image top is. And the top of the image will always be on this end. Bottom of the image will always be on this end. And that'll reflect. So like the bottom of his shirt was over there. The top of his head was right here. And what happened in that image case is at the top of his canvas. Oh, whoops, I'm looking at the wrong one. At the top of his canvas, he had 2 solid blocks. And I know that sounds silly. It sounds silly to me, but what that means is if I was to have this block here, this specific pixel would be misshaded in the way that those images have the lines. And I would get the same lines on my image if I was to put a second block down the entire line. Again, I don't know why, but the block that's adjacent to this pixel of the image needs to only be one block tall. And it works the same in the opposite. So, like, if this block wasn't here, it would be misshaded lighter. So, the block needs to be here to give it proper shading with the rest of the image. Again, I don't know why. Weird Minecraft science. So what we do is we just put the one solid block, being this stone, and then we would put glass on the rest, because glass is transparent and it will not show up on maps. Hence why this entire canvas is made of glass, minus the edges. So it is totally okay to have a second block here as long as it's transparent. And obviously in the void, you're going to want that because you don't want to fall in on accident. But when building a canvas, you must have the one solid block. Even if you're not using a canvas, the same principles apply. You need to have that one block there to properly shade the image. And I don't know why, but that is the case, as to avoid things like this image. And then even worse cases like the glorb. I have witnessed countless fucking canvases be built in the wrong direction, and then the players give up because they invested so much to have a silly mechanic completely break all of their images. If they were to make any other images on this canvas, the same lines would appear, no matter what. Whereas normal east to west canvases have no scan lines and are all intact. Now, there's a lot of different types of map art. Personally, I use carpet only for the simplicity and reusability, like recycle all of our carpet materials to reuse for the next image. And I just feel like that's the most efficient. Granted, you can get better image quality out of, say, all material map art. And what I say by all material is you use every block possible in the game to achieve the specific color shading that you need for the image. Now, we do have players on the server that do that. It just takes easily 3 times the amount of time and effort. So I personally don't do it, but to each their own. And there is actually canvases. So, like, this is a carpet canvas, but there are canvases that use all mats, and that is totally achievable to be able to reuse those mats. It's just a lot of effort. And now there's also flat, staggered, and staircased map art. We're going to start with flat. So let's try to get a good example. This was my very first map art. I built this within the first month of the server, I'd say. And I built it on the ocean, obviously. I have the cobblestone strip to give the single block shading down the entire line. Because again, like on the canvas, this is entirely necessary. And if I was to have 2 blocks tall, it will reshade this pixel, therefore ruining the image. So again, 1 solid block down the whole way. And this is what we call flat map art. There's no elevation, it's all on the same axis. All the carpet is connected to itself. And this is the lowest quality map art you can make. Now, you can do all material map art and also do flat. You'll achieve slightly better shading, but to achieve maximum quality, you need to do staircased map art. Now, here is a good example of a staircased map art. As you can see, the bamboo acts as a staircase, and the carpet is placed on top of each step of the staircase, and the output is a properly shaded image versus a flat art which has minimal shading. Now, this is carpet only, but you can do staircased with all materials to achieve maximum quality. And they do look very good. I'll try to get an example of all map art, but you get the idea. This is a staircase versus a flat. Now, stagger map art is this type of staircase where it's only 7 blocks wide for each step, and this is for the water to be able to travel all the way down to the bottom and collect all the carpet to then be sorted back into the system. Now, there's a few different staggered types. There's the east to west or west to east. And it's really just the same thing flipped, because some players on the server have built their canvases with this top end at the west side, opposite of this, which is totally fine. It totally works and does not give scan lines. Scan lines only appear when it's facing north to south or south to north. Now, the stagger, it acts as the same shading as flat. So to the Minecraft map, this is going to behave as a flat map art. So no staircase shading, though it looks like a staircase. I know that part can be a bit confusing. And then obviously this is carpet only, because the water stream can only wash carpet. It can't, for instance, wash the tile away. Now, there are canvases that exist on this server that do achieve all material collection, but it is quite crazy. Let me try to show you. This is not the right one, sorry. So this is the same principle as a carpet collection canvas, but this can collect all materials with some manual effort. For our carpet canvas, the water will wash away the carpet autonomously. for this canvas being all material, the water will come down these channels that are all transparent, and it will wash away specific sections that you mine manually. So what Lingen does is he'll create his art on this glass canvas using all materials like raw iron, gold, diamond. And then when he's ready to clean it, he will mine with a pickaxe the entire strip and then wash that strip down with water so that the materials can then be collected and resorted into his system. This is maximum end goal map art. This is beyond me, and this man is crazy. He's AFK. But it does work, and it works very well. He has been cooking the Pokemon art, and these look so good because he's using every possible block in the game to achieve specific colors. Now, so obviously we have large art and we have smaller art. And all it is this is one piece that is made on the entire canvas. And then the canvas is flushed and reused to make the next piece and the next piece and the next piece until you have the entire image that you form. And the way that we copy these, because we have an economy on the server where we sell the art, but also just copying large forms like this is a pain. So we made a custom command that our God Cyan installed on the server where you have a shulker, empty shulker, and you put your map art in it. Let's just say this is a large piece, 3 pieces, and you hold that shulker. That shulker is in my hand. You also need empty maps and empty shulkers in your inventory. And you run the command copy shulker map or copy SM. Same difference. You run the command and it'll say successfully copied. You then have 2 identical shulkers with the same map art inside and less maps and less shulkers because it uses the materials that you have in your inventory to create the clone. And that's just to simplify the copying and the selling on the server. It's just quality of life right there. Beautiful. Now, the next thing is ethics. And obviously, this will apply differently to different servers. But on our server, it's an adult-only server, and we do get a bit spicy with our art, as you can see. We do try to keep a leash on it, though. So for this server specifically, we have rule of thumb to keep nudity out of general public. So this is borderline, but acceptable. We also allow full-on nudity. We just make sure it's enclosed to confined spaces. We have a designated museum for art that has a basement for all of the extreme art. And the more tame stuff we keep on the surface and everybody displays at their leisure. But if you are to make extreme nudity, such as if she didn't have anything on and you could see full areola, nipple, blah, 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 that then could not be sold on the server. and must only be displayed in the museum basement. Meaning, you can make the art, you just must forfeit it to the admin to then be displayed in its designated location. We do this for a lot of reasons, mostly for the general community of the server. Not everybody wants to stare at extreme porn all day. And so we try to be respectful to each other and keep the tame stuff on display and the extreme stuff on display where it needs to be. There's also the reason that the streamer that created this server could very well tour the server on stream, and we don't want to be the community that only has porn on the Minecraft server. Not at all. Not even close. It's a thing, but we also have other types of art. We have megastructures, we have monuments, we have everything you could think of you could do in Minecraft. But we don't want to be specifically known for porn. And so if he was to stream, that would put us in bad light and potentially put him in trouble. If something extreme was shown on stream and he got banned, we're not going to be the ones. So don't join thinking you're going to be the one. Because not only will we rat you out, but you will be perma IP banned. And I don't say that to scare anybody. I'm just trying to make the general consensus known. We are all on the same page and have been for the past 6 months. There's been a few bad apples, but I think only 3 people have been banned. So just try to keep it respectful. Now, the last thing is a custom like plugin for item frames. And what that means is I can sneak. It might be shift for you or whatever key you use to sneak or crouch. You want to crouch and right click on an item frame. And that will then make it invisible. Obviously, only with the item in the frame. So if there's no item in the frame, it won't become invisible. But if I was to put the art back and then right click while sneaking, it pushes it in and the frame is no longer visible. This is very useful for not only transparent map art, where you can see through portions of the image, but it can reduce lag because the item frame in Minecraft science is an entity, same as a cow. And so it will create lag the more you have. So having all of the invis item frames here really saves my frame rate. It's still kind of rough because we have a lot going on, but it really helps. And obviously makes good transparent art. Now, this is the MAPARTCRAFT website, but this is not the vanilla website. If you were to say search for MAPARTCRAFT, there is this website by Rebane, and it's identical with a few differences. This one was made by LEINGEN'S, the same player on the server. And the differences he made are transparency. So you can import transparent images and actually cut out what's transparent with a nice tolerance. There's also the staggering. So if you go under staircasing, on is normal staircase with any block really that is built into the sky. I displayed it earlier. Stagger is our canvases that have these staggered stairs. And so I use the west to east 8 to 7 because that matches my exact canvas and means that the carpet for the schematic will render on each step accurately. Let me try to get you a good example of that. So this is where I load my schematic. I open Lightmatica. I load a schematic. Let's just say an old project I was working on, and you load the schematic. I then have to adjust it because obviously it's not like on the glass. So open Lightmatica again, go to the placements, configure it, and then these coordinates are going to adjust its placement in world. So I'm just going to play with them until I can see that it's exactly where it needs to be. Now, as you can see, this cobblestone here travels the entire line. And that's what I was discussing earlier about the shading. That's entirely necessary, but I already have stone here, so I don't need that cobblestone and I can disregard it. It will make the same result. But each layer has its carpet accurately placed in the schematic render. So like it shows the image there, but it's not actually there because that's just like a blueprint render. And that is what the west to east is. Now, the east to west, 2 to 7 and 8 to 7, are just canvases that are reversed. So these chests are on the opposite side, facing east, whereas mine are facing west. And then the difference between the 2-7 and 8-7 is the other canvas I showed earlier for the all materials. It just has different spacing for each step. But if you're using a carpet canvas, you're going to want to use the 8 to 7. Now, there's a lot of different settings here. The first thing to start when you're making an image is the block selection preset. You want to select carpets, so that way any image you use will only use carpet as its colors. So I'll pick an image here. And as you can see, it's showing me what it's going to look like in game with these settings. But I like to tweak these. So I remove the blocks underneath because you don't need support blocks if you have a canvas. You would need support blocks if you were, say, building it in the air. But even on the ocean, you don't need support blocks. And the block to add, you can just remove because you're not adding any blocks. So it doesn't matter what's here. Transparency is if your image is a PNG and has cutouts, but this one doesn't. So we're just going to leave that. The better color, I like to use Euclidean. Hope I said that right. I usually see better quality out of it. And then the dithering is very important. This means that it's going to change the algorithm in how it shades the colors with the carpet. So right now we're on Floyd Steinberg 16 sharpen. Let's go to Atkinson 12 sharpen. And as you can see, it drastically changed the image and its colors. So you really just want to check all of these for every image to see what looks best. And I usually have best quality out of Floyd 24 sharpen. But you can even take this further with image pre-processing. So you want to enable that, and then you can change brightness, contrast, saturation, and you really want to fine tune these to get the proper image that you want. My only advice with this is do not go below 88 brightness. And when you finish tweaking however you want your image to look, you just download the NBT. And if it's a larger image, say if I was to create a 2x2, that means it's 4 total maps making a large image. I would download as 1x1 split. And what that's going to do is create these 1 0, 1 1, 2 0, 2 1. And that's each individual square that you need to make to form the entire image. And when you download a larger map, it's going to be in a zip. And when you download a single map, it'll just be a single file. Regardless, they go in your schematics folder in your Minecraft instance, like install folder, wherever your Minecraft is. When you have Lightmatica installed, you'll have a schematics folder. And as you can see, I have a few zips in here, so I'll save it and then I'll open it. And you want to extract each of the map arts to the schematics folder. And once you do that, you'll have it in your Lightmatica directory. And you can use your up arrow to go up. And this folder is just the schematic folder. Okay, so there's a few different types of canvases. This is almost base. The only addition to this one is the soulsand. But it could be any block here, bamboo, any log, any solid block. You don't want to do glass because then anything under here will show up on your image. So it has to be solid that you would then put the carpet over top of. But they all follow the same idea. It's large steps for the water to flow down and then sort the items collected. And we'll start at the top. So, as I went over earlier, this is a full map and it's 128 by 128. So as you can see, it's all brown because soul sand comes up brown. And the frog lights and stuff don't matter because it's going to be covered by carpet. So it's just going to be covered up. But all the way to the edge of the map is the surface of the canvas. So like this is the wall and that's where it ends. Same for the trapdoor. And the trapdoor is holding back water. Every piece, all the way down 128 blocks, is a water source. And the water source also has the trapdoor on the same block. So it's like a waterlogged trapdoor. And what happens is you keep it powered so that the trapdoors stay open and unpower it by turning the switch, which inverts the torch and then cuts power to the line. I'll show you here. So I turn the switch, torch turns off, power turns off, doors turn off and open, letting the water flow out. And now that's going to flow all the way down, removing any water or carpet or anything washable. You could use candles and stuff like that. Anything washable will get washed down to the bottom into this stream, which these blocks, the trapdoors, will actually push the hitbox of any item down into that stream. So, carrot down in, and then streams down to that area. But first, we'll go over these. This water source is using a gate fence there and a gate there. It's important to put the one on the bottom and the block in front, and then the one on top and the block in back like this, so that this water source only flows this way and it cannot flow that way. Because if it flowed that way, the items would just sit here in a pool flowing back and forth. You want all of these sources to be flowing that direction so that any item, even all the way down here, will end up all the way down to where it needs to go, which is into a kelp soul sand elevator. Now, if you've never built one of these before, it's just the soul sand at the bottom with water in the tunnel all the way. So this water source is flowing down into the tunnel and then also that way. Once the water's there, you can place kelp on the soul sand, and you want to place it all the way up to the top until you can't place any more. And when you break it, it creates a bubble elevator. And what happens is the items that you toss in there, so like let's toss one, it will, oh, whoops. I actually have to get out. So toss it in there, and it flows up and into the sorting system. Now, once it gets up here, the same water source that you used to go down the tunnel will transfer it this way with the ice. And these two ender chests are very important. There's a mechanic in the game where items that align and clash with the ender chests will align their hitboxes to be straight with the hoppers here. So if these weren't here, the items would end up all over this area, and sometimes they would be too far to this side to get collected, and you would lose material. So use these two ender chests, like so, to allow the items to hit into it and flow down along these grates. Very important. These are auto crafters, and auto crafting in itself is a bit complicated. So I'll go over my other setup. This is a very old primitive setup, but just know they are auto crafters for wool to carpet and then to be pushed into the sorting system. Now, the grates and the hoppers are also important for hitbox reasons, so make sure it's set up like so. And all of these hoppers, as you can see with the arrows, are facing that direction, and they're all lined to the end of the canvas here, where this looks a bit confusing. This is a different set of hoppers. Those hoppers face that direction, which then feed back into these sorters here. So as you can see, they go that direction and then cut left and then cut left again. which then sorts them into these hoppers here, which corresponds to each color of the available carpets. Now, setting up this part is very simple once you get down the concept. What's happening here is the carpet's going through this stream all the way down, and then it's getting split into this stream to go into these hoppers that are going into comparators. And the comparators are then powered up to this point until the specific color is pushed through. Once that white carpet starts to flow in here, it will then power this line, which will power this line and unlock the hopper, allowing white carpet only to end up in this chest. Now, I know it sounds like a lot, but just build the schematic as I supply and make sure that they look like this. 41 white carpet and 4 filler items. You can make filler items in an anvil by holding an entire stack of anything you want. So I did dirt, and I held a stack of dirt, and I put it in the anvil, and I named it filler. Then I just put a stack of white carpet here and the 4 filler items. And what happens when you put a stack in after it's built correctly is it will filter all the way down to 41 automatically for you. You just have to be patient and let it do its thing. But it's important to ensure you build this exactly as is, and I'll make sure that the schematics I include will be one-to-one as is here. So all you would need to do is fill in this compartment for each different carpet. So it's light gray, that's gray, black, brown, and so on for each color. Now, it's important to have, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, and 4 sets of sorters for each color. It's important to have the redundancy because hopper tick speed is very slow. And let's say I finish a map art and I flush it, and I immediately want to start a new one or start the next one of the large image. I would then have to wait for all of my colors to re-sort through until I could start again. And that's where the redundancy comes in, and also overstocking. Obviously, this is a lot of carpet to hold, but it's useful and almost vital, especially with how fast we've gotten the system down. I highly advise doing at least 2 to 4. Now, the last chest here is for overflow. So if you notice, like I said earlier, this line goes down that way and then gets fed into the sorters. But say seeds get in here that aren't being sorted, they will push through all these hoppers and then through to the overflow chest. Anything non-carpet ends up here. And I also have dump chests, which when you make a map art, you're likely to have a lot of excess carpet in your inventory. And you can use a system like this instead of having to drop all of the carpet manually. You just put it all in this chest and it gets spat out into the sorting system. There's a few ways to set these up. I like to do it with the hopper feeding into a dispenser or even a dropper. They both work the same in this instance. And the comparator reads the dropper or dispenser If an item's in there, it powers the piston, which goes into the, sorry, hang on. The piston sends the observer into the other observer, which makes the clock, which fires the dispenser. So really, it's just when the dispenser has stuff, it empties itself until there's nothing in it and the line depowers. But there's a lot of ways you can do that. So that's really up to you. Same for the auto crafting system. However you want to get carpet in the system is totally up to you. Now, that canvas you just saw was my first canvas, and it had all solid blocks. This one is in the end dimension, and it's made with all glass over void. So, as you can see, this entire square is void with the islands that I cut to make it and the stuff that I built around it. The reason for the void is transparency. So, in this instance, we placed the carpet down to form Wubby, his tux, his arm, but we didn't put anything else in this area. We just left it to be the glass over void, and that translates to the transparency. That also only works in conjunction with invisible frames. So if you notice, I sneak and right click, and the frame becomes invisible, or in this case, visible. And you can take the item out, put something else in, and make it invisible. That's the only way transparent art works. So it's important to be aware of that. But it's a plugin on the server, so in our case, you don't need anything. It's just on the server. When you first load up a canvas, so like say you just build one and you have no carpet, you obviously need to get the wool, and the wool you need to craft into the carpet. So I made this crafter, which is it's my favorite design, but it's the same system. It's the observer clock powering all of the crafters, and I just have that on a toggle switch right here. And I dump my wool in here, and then it all flows into the sorting stream. Same for my dump chest. It's just a bit more hidden and compact. But it's important when you first start to not overfill your canvas too fast, because these hoppers that are in the collection area when you're sorting, they can't hold as much carpet as all the chests can hold. So what's going to happen is they're going to fill all these hoppers up all the way up to this hopper, which is 128 hoppers. And the rest of the items, once it's full, will sit on that ice block and they will despawn over 5 minutes. So when you first build a canvas, you need to keep an eye on this block here to ensure that no despawning is going on. And if items start to build up here, you need to turn off your crafter, or however you're getting carpet in, you need to pause it. And then resume once it's not backed up. It just takes time, unfortunately, because tick speed is slow. Now, the speed methods, as you saw on my last canvas, I used soulsand with soul speed boots. Now, I kind of abandoned that idea because I love transparent art. And honestly, speed beacons do the trick fine enough for me. So just surround your canvas with a bunch of speed beacons and you should be fine. Now, I turn on easy place. So you see on my screen it says easy place off and on. When I right click on the schematic, So like there's nothing there right now, it's just the render. When I right click it, it's going to pull out the black carpet from my inventory. So like right now it's not there. I'm going to do it again, right click, and it switches your hotbar if you have it in your inventory. And all that's really doing is the pick block feature, which is vanilla Minecraft, but it's firing it when you right click. And you can even hold it down and run and basically be a slow inkjet. And that's for the most part how we do it. A few people have experimented with things like riding horses, my speeds boots with soulsand, but that's for the most part it. And the caveat is you have to load your inventory with the correct blocks. And the best way to do that, Litematica has a feature where you can press M and L at the same time to open the material list for your current schematic. And I say your current schematic because you can have multiple loaded, and that can confuse the system a little bit. So your Litematica key, however you open it, I think default is M. It looks like this. You can go to schematic placements if you have one loaded and configure material list, and it's the same screen just for that specific schematic. Now, to load the schematic, you're going to want to go back to the default Litematica and press load. And this will be the folder in your Minecraft instance called schematics. And I have a whole bunch. So this is all those. You click on it. The preview mod I showed you earlier should give you a little display, but sometimes they're borked. They still work. And you press load schematic. It then loads it wherever you're standing, and you can see it rendered in world. It's not actually there, it's just a blueprint. And then you go back to the placement menu and see how I have both. So I hit configure and the material list. Now I'll turn on rendering and look at it, and I'll go back to placements, configure, and these coordinates are how you're going to manipulate where it is. So just play with those and see how to move it. You can lock it, rotate, blah, blah, blah. And then obviously the material list. Okay, so this is a little trick that I've learned over time that I really enjoy using. And it really helps with collecting the materials and not being so overwhelmed, because this map is 16,000 carpet blocks because it's 128 by 128. So that's obviously more carpet than you can hold. And the trick that I use is I render in layers. And I'll demonstrate that now. So you press Litematica key, M, or whatever you have it as. You go to configuration menu, render layers at the top on the right. And right now it says all, but if I go to single layer, set it here, it'll just render this step. I actually like to go a step further and go to layer range, set here, and just set it however I need. So like it's 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps. So now that I can see that's correct, material list, rendered layers, refresh, info HUD. And I can see here, but I can also see it on my screen here. This may look different for you, and you can adjust how large it is, how big the text is. You'll just have to poke through the settings. But I can see that I need 13 stacks of black. And I say 13 because it says 12 times 64 plus about a half stack. So 13 basically. 12 stacks there, 9 stacks there, 5 stacks there, 4 stacks there, and so on. Now, what I like to do is I'll go and fill up the most carpet at the top, and it'll go down the list from most to least. So, like, we need the most of black, brown, and red, and I'll start with black. I'll grab 13 stacks, and I'll actually put the majority of that in the L storage, which, if you don't know, is your land storage. When you claim land, you will get one of these, which is a chest, like a ender chest, basically. And you just store the carpet in there, but keep a few on hand, like 3 stacks, so that when you're placing the black up there, you can open that command back up just to restock right here. And then you'll move down the list. And I like to carry every color that I need on that current list. So I'll have at least one of each of these in my inventory, and I'll have the bulk in my L storage. But really, it's up to preference and how you like to do things. A lot of our artists like to do color by color. So they'll start with just black, and then they'll move to just brown, just red, and so on. It's really just preference. Now, next is creating schematics. This is very useful. I've done this countless times on this server where I'll make a schematic of an area that I'm building in. I'll take it to creative and I'll build how I want to build it in creative. Make a new schematic and then bring it back here so that I can easily see the blueprint of how I want it, instead of just building as I go and seeing what I think looks good. I never really liked that aspect of building, freeballing, as you will. I like planning. I'm very OCD though, so that's probably why. So like for instance, I went into creative and I made a schematic of this and brought it into this server and built it within like 5 minutes, because I knew exactly with the schematic where what goes and how much of whatever blocks I needed. Now, I'll teach you how to make a schematic. It works with the area editor in Litematica, which is here. You just click into here and you'll see there's these 2 corner boxes with coordinates. You can move both to player, and you'll notice that there's this little faint outline right here that if I was to open that menu again and just move the second box and have the first box stay there, it will move the second box to me and create an enclosure between the 2 boxes. And it's very flexible. You can use the second box and bring it up by left clicking or down by right clicking to make the selection larger. And anything within this selection will become your schematic once you save. So let's just say I put those carpets there and I open the area editor again. Once I know that it's completely enclosed, I saved the schematic as test. Save it. And there's also settings where if you're using it to save a large area, like several hundred chunks even, I've done it, you want to ignore entities. So let me try to get a stick. So as you can see, when I pull it out, there's that text on the bottom left over chat. And that's just informing you of what the mode is here, tool mode. Right now it's on area selection, so it's going to be the schematic saving tool. You can select an area and then save it as a schematic instead of manually moving the chords like so. There's also other tools like placement, which when you have a schematic loaded, let's just load one. It will place it wherever you click. Now, it's going to place wherever that first box was when you saved. So it's a little bit finicky. There's also edit schematic, which I'm not entirely sure how to use. I use this tool that lets you replace stuff in the material list. So you just hit replace with whatever you want. Let's say cyan carpet. And now in the schematic, it's going to show cyan instead of red, like we saved earlier. We've all been copying these settings and they've worked very well. So I advise you just pause on my screen and verify that my settings match yours. And I'll try to give you sufficient time. So we'll go down to easy place first. Go ahead and pause. And then we'll go down. Go ahead and pause. And go ahead and pause. And that should be all. Sorry, I know it's quite a list. Just make sure you match everything. The info overlays, it's up to you, it's preference. Same for visuals and colors. For hotkeys, it's kind of important to make sure you have easy place key set and make sure that you have a key set for material list. It should be M plus L, but I'm not sure if that's default or not. And then you want to search for render, toggle schematic rendering. You want to make sure you have a key set to that so that you can make it invisible if it becomes hard to look at. Now, I went over a few commands like lstorage and the shulker map copier, but we also have like /sit. Well, you can have caps on, and that just lets you sit down. /crawl, and then there's /lspawn for people's lands, and this is only if they have public teleporting enabled. So if you have a land, you have to make sure you have it enabled by doing /l, and you'll find your land, and you'll shift click into it. So I'm on this one right now. Or sorry, you'll just regular click, and then you'll shift right click this ender eye, and you'll see it says allow visitors to teleport. If you don't know how to claim land, you just do /land create, and then you name it. And you have to be in unclaimed land. So what that means is, I'll go outside. And I type /view. I can see this like green line right here. It's like a particle effect. That's indicating my claim area. And this yellow one is indicating my neighboring claim area. The in-between is unclaimed. And it's important to claim a bit far away from others because the claiming system won't let you claim this close to each other. So like if I tried to claim any closer, it wouldn't let me. So you have to be a bit of a distance away from any other claimed area. And then you would just do lands create and then name it. And that gives you the L storage for the associated land as well. You can use that anytime. The warps that I have that you're more than welcome to come and visit are, this one is called Der Spinnenhaus, and I know it's weird. You just do lspawn Der Spinnenhaus and just click it, and that'll take you here to my home. I live in the gay village, and I've been here since day one. I also have lspawn Kurtz, which is just KURTS right here. And I actually sell art here, as well as my first canvas being here. And I made a note block song, which has a lot in it. I think I made a little info board. 1721 note blocks. And we also have a mini golf course and an ice skating ring. I also have L-spawn end booth, which is my transparent canvas in the end dimension. There's also L-spawn Guggenheim? I'm not sure. This is the art museum. It's also just outside of Warp Spawn 9. Spawn 9 right there. And this is the admin museum where Cyan puts up all of our art. And it's where the super spicy basement art goes. So, like I was saying earlier, you want to donate it here at the shulker chest if it's any type of art, especially spicy art, because spicy art belongs here. There's also the regular museum, which is at Warps Spawn 1. And this is not to be confused with the art museum. I actually captured a ghast for this zoo. So this is not a happy ghast, it's an unhappy ghast. And I pulled him out of the nether with a minecart to put him in the museum zoo over here. So I would definitely advise checking this place out. Super cool. Rfish127. Hoser also made a public canvas. So L-spawn public endvis. So it's an end canvas where you can make transparent art or normal non-transparent art. And he's actually AFKing it right now.